In an interview from 2000 with Charlie Rose, David Lynch discusses filmmaking and his latest project, The Straight Story.
Film is such a beautiful language. It can do abstractions, and abstractions are the combination of all these different elements that you have in a film. It can do an abstraction of emotion, and I felt this emotion coming from the script, and that's what lit my fire.
This conversation about the emotion Lynch felt coming from the screenplay was triggered by this Charlie Rose comment.
This is not like anything you've ever done before.
Right.
Now, if unfamiliar with David Lynch, or if taken out of context, one may assume Charlie Rose is referencing a film that is bigger and grander, both in terms of story and style, relative to Lynch's previous works. However, if you are familiar with Lynch and The Straight Story, you would know this to not be true. The Straight Story is, at least on its surface, often regarded as Lynch's most conventional film. Now, I was introduced to Lynch first through the Criterion Collection, seeing Mulholland Drive and Blue Velvet, and I've since been enamored by his entire filmography. Though widely considered his most conventional film, it's The Straight Story I reflect on most. Lynch himself claimed The Straight Story to be his most experimental movie in an interview found in the novel The Complete Lynch. Based on true events, The Straight Story follows a Minnesota-born man living in Iowa who rides across the state on his lawnmower to visit his estranged brother in southwestern Wisconsin. Now, as a proud Midwesterner and raised Wisconsinite, I've always wished more stories and films took advantage of the unique and special qualities of the region and its people, and I do laud Lynch for taking on a project so seemingly divergent from the rest of his career. Mary Sweeney, a one-time partner to Lynch and one of his frequent collaborators, was born in Madison, Wisconsin, my hometown, and after learning of Alvin Straight's unique trek, spent years acquiring the rights to tell his story. And after writing the screenplay with fellow Wisconsinite and childhood friend John Roach, she approached Lynch to read the script, never expecting him to lead the project. Claiming it to be one of only 4 screenplays he's ever read that he loved, Lynch eventually chose to direct the film too, a decision often described as unique and unexpected. Some imagery of the film is not too dissimilar from that of Lynch's other works, just without his assumed darker content. In the opening of Blue Velvet, we see shots of a town and a neighborhood, unassuming citizens going about their day. This gives way to an iconic and disturbing transition where we see literal cockroaches fumbling in the earth, a figuration suggesting that the Americana is nothing more than a facade. Something sinister lies beneath the surface. Now, because The Straight Story is made by David Lynch, one may expect the weird and uncanny will descend upon the film. We are also introduced to unassuming people and communities and shown the common flora of our setting. However, when the camera descends upon the Iowan cornfields, instead of showing what lies beneath, we look up. The film persists with its face value and optimistic perspective, the cornfields representing a hardworking and down-to-earth Midwest lifestyle. Both our character's name and the title of the film suggest that this narrative is simple and uncomplicated. What you see is what you get. And that's very emblematic of the Midwest stereotype. Alvin's independence and persistence, even if naive, rings true. Many characterize the Midwest as boring, made up of roaming flatlands filled with prairie and corn, and a population with a naive and mundane nicety. But in the context of Lynch, it's a subversion that elevates our good-natured characteristics. Lynch is working against type. While parallels could be made between the benevolent Alvin Straight and other Lynch protagonists like a Dale Cooper or Jeffrey Beaumont, the environment he inhabits and the characters he encounters are starkly different. There is no Bob or Frank Booth, no Deep River apartment or Red Room. Instead, Alvin is routinely aided without doubt by those he's never met and in places he doesn't live. Unlike Blue Velvet, Lynch's other works, and many other films, nothing lies beneath the surface. Instead, the morals of our characters, Alvin Straight, persist, giving way to a celebration of good values. It's a true family film in the least condescending way and portrays the region with accuracy and respect. Now, despite this subversion, I would still argue The Straight Story isn't dissimilar from the rest of his works. Following the true events in 1994, the tale of Alvin Straight became a national headline, and the story of a man who rode his lawnmower across Iowa turned into something of a surreal tale. And few other words better describe the characters and settings that inhabit Lynch's works. The dry and uncanny humor found in his filmography is also present in The Straight Story. A hardware store owner is unusually attached to his grabber when Alvin tries to buy it for his journey, and a distraught woman who hit a deer provides Alvin food for dinner. And lastly, I may be biased, but the reference to cheddar heads and Wisconsin being a party place also make me smile. I mentioned earlier the film is uniquely uncomplicated in the context of Lynch's filmography, but that doesn't mean it's not without conflict. It's deeply reflective and layered with lots of empathy. The entire reason for Alvin's endeavor is because he and his brother Lyle have not spoken in over a decade, but a health crisis inspires Alvin to rekindle their relationship. And in multiple sequences during Alvin's journey, he and other characters share dialogue reflecting on the past. Alvin shares insight into his own family, using a bundle of sticks as an analogy for the strength that being together provides, inspiring a young pregnant woman to return home after running away. Alvin also recounts his personal experiences in World War II with a fellow veteran, their dialogue and faces giving insight to their relived confrontations. At the end of the film, Alvin finishes his 240-mile journey and reaches his brother Lyle. Unlike his previous meetings, the two share very little dialogue. Alvin and Lyle both have hard-headed personalities and a tender stubbornness. And perhaps frustrating and even sad as an observer, I also think their ability to understand what the other is feeling without words is endearing and powerful. I say now that The Straight Story is my most experimental film. That is Lynch's direct quote from the book The Complete Lynch, and I can't help but feel a tinge of jest in the statement. It does nonetheless take a lot of patient and careful skill to take what is seemingly a mundane and quiet story and turn it into something so humane, impactful, and distinctly cinematic. And I think that's what makes David Lynch so unique, not only as a filmmaker and an artist, but as a human being. He can see the love, comedy, and empathy where others may not.
When you read something, we all have the experience, we picture it in our minds. And those pictures, those initial things, are what guide us from then on. And so as this thing, I was picturing it, at the same time, I'm feeling things, and I'm thinking, film can do this, and it could be beautiful.
Like Alvin and Lyle, it's not necessarily the words themselves that matter, rather the palpable emotion we experience and share. Thanks for watching.